Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Anime Night in the Dojo. Today's featured show, Fire Force, Season 3, Part 2.
Yep, Fire Force, Season 3, Episode 25, the season and series finale. Welcome back to the dojo. I'm Ryu. That's Age. We're back for more Anime Night in the Dojo, and, well, picking up where we left off from yesterday for you guys, about half an hour ago for us, Shinra Bancho Man, the creator, the god, perhaps. They'll go into it a little bit more in this. I'm interested to see what they potentially tacked on to what the author had them tack on to the epilogue, because based on how long the epilogue is, where they are right now to the end of the epilogue and like the last page of the manga, maybe like 10 minutes of runtime, maybe a little bit more if they really embellish a little bit. So I assume they'll be adding a little bit more to it. We'll just have to see what they do with it. And then there was the stuff last time that I talked about that was omitted and replaced and slightly changed. If you guys want to see it, there are a couple cool fight sequences with Hage and Rekka, so I'd recommend reading the last 25 chapters of the manga if that's what you have time for. It is definitely worth it to see those things for those differences. It would have been cool to see those animated, like we mentioned yesterday, but it is what it is if they just didn't have the funding or the green light to do one extra episode, because in all reality, the stuff that they skipped this season was just about another 20 minutes. So, again, that is what it is. I don't know entirely why they didn't give them the green light for that, or if they asked for that, or if they just said, hey, cut this doesn't matter. The author was okay with it. Who knows? I don't have that information, so I can't really speak on it. It's just random speculation. So that being said, it's not a huge deal, but some of the stuff that we talked about yesterday would have been cool to see regardless, but it is what it is. We're still getting the major bits, so that's just how it is. We'll be wrapping this up today, and it should be very cool because there's still some very cool stuff to come. Last time we had the whole Soul Resonance thing. Age got to talk about that with Soul Eater stuff, and there'll be more Soul Eater stuff to go, because here in the first frame we see, how very wide the Soul Eaterverse is as cartoony and very, like Toon World that it is. It's from Shinra's mind. You know what I mean? Like when Sho points out, like the whale. It's like, give me a break. That's what I remember. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he didn't have like an anatomical freaking whale model to go off of. He's literally just going from memory off of the one like image he saw from Vulcan's simulation display thing that he did.
Right. And at the end of the day, do you really think somebody like Shinra pays that close attention to architecture and how things look, like building-wise? Probably not. It's like, these look like buildings. They're just very fantastical, like the moon and stuff. So, that's how the Soul Eaterverse ends up the Soul Eaterverse, and we are there now. This is the Soul Eater world that Shinra has created, and they're going to go more into it. So I will let them do that, and we'll talk about it. It should be very good, and it's a fitting end to this series and a bridge to the Soul Eaterverse. And once again, I'm interested to see what they potentially tack on to the epilogue here. But we'll talk about what they potentially tacked on or did not tack on during and after the episode. So people on Patreon, we'll see you on the other side of the edit for the time reaction, and people on YouTube, we'll see you on the other side for the discussion and review. All links are down there where they need to be if you want to check out other stuff. So watch whatever you feel like. We appreciate it either way. So we're going to push some buttons and get going here. So here goes some. Well, alrighty then. There you guys have it. Shinra has recreated the world, brought everybody back. You guys remember this? Yeah. This is now a thing. A lot of random ships happened in this episode, by the way. These two were together. It was pretty much openly stated that freaking Maki and the Lieutenant got together. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Shinra is allowed to have a girlfriend or three. I guess Iris knows about Hibana, even though Hibana is treating Shinra like a pop idol or something.
Yeah, she more hero worships him than like truly has romantic feelings for him.
Yeah, but still, there's a lot of weird stuff like this. I remember when I was reading this earlier, I was like, really? These two? After what happened? Really? Just full on The Miz from WWE? Really? Really?
Well, I mean, like Shinra said, one of the biggest things he changed about this world is making
Everything closer to
Everyone's
death.
everyone closer to death, and therefore a lot more desensitized to the idea of death. So her killing him does not kill his interest in her.
Yeah, he's not going to sweat the small stuff, like, you know, having his head cut in half. Yep, no problems. Just we're cruising. I will say during all this, I did mention at the end of the reaction, but for the people who didn't watch that, this was shot for shot the epilogue chapter. Nothing added, nothing removed, just everything the same, just animated. It was good. They did add the laughing bit really hard there with the moon and the sun. That was, I guess you could call that an addition, but I don't even know what you'd call that, because this was technically a slightly longer episode, because this was 24 minutes and 11 seconds as opposed to like the 23 minutes and 15 seconds that most episodes are. So they graced them with an extra minute of time, most of which was taken up by the sun and moon laughing. So yeah, I don't know what's up with that, but again, you know, it was a solid way to wrap up the series, bridge that gap with Soul Eater, that kind of thing. It will be interesting to see if and I'm going to say when, hopefully, knock on wood, that they do the Soul Eater Perfect series that the author did do, like completely redoing Soul Eater to the, as he calls it, perfect. That there are more like Fire Force references in it. However, it was something that needs to be mentioned here, and we'll talk about it right here, is when they have this time skip here, when Shinra becomes the Supreme Commander, and it's 25 years later, and he's 42, and like his kids show up, then they kind of show the you know, kid death being made by death and stuff like that, and they show, you know, baby Soul and baby Black Star and, you know, little kid Maka, that kind of thing. That's not 25 years in the future. Soul Eater takes place hundreds of years in the future. Okay.
Yeah, because like Inka's the first witch, and she goes on to found the Order of the Witches, and there ends up being generations of other witches, including, you know, like Arachne, who's by the time the Soul Eater first takes place like 300 years old, and she's still not the oldest witch.
Yeah,
it's probably close to like 1,000-year time gap between the two.
Yeah, it is quite a time jump. It's not just the 25 years and everybody's there thing. You know, as we saw, like Rekka goes off, and why do you think Black Star exists? Well, Rekka is around. He founds the Star Clan.
Yeah,
all the major players have some sort of you know, whatever. Like there's the whole thing that like Soul might be a descendant of the Kusakabes because of teeth. I mean, that kind of... So
yeah, most people figure he's that he's Sho's kid, but we don't ever see who Sho ends up with. It's just kind of implied that he ends up with Arrow.
Right. So it will be interesting to see if in Soul Eater Perfect, if they kind of maybe lower that time jump or something based on this ED. You know what I mean? Maybe the author kind of fudged the witch timeline a little bit or something, because even if it's like 1,000 years, like Age was speculating there, I don't know how many people would still be reading about the Great Cataclysm stuff and how the world was saved at that point. So it's just kind of one of those things, because everything still seemed relatively the same, but based on the world that Shinra created, there's probably not a huge amount of effort being put into like technological and architectural advancement. You know what I mean? Because it's just kind of like what we saw in the episode where Shinra was like, yeah, I had to do this like a bunch of times to get it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and from what we know of the Soul Eater backstory, there is a pretty extended period of time where it basically is full anarchy of just humans are new to this new world, and they're kind of spreading out and trying to figure things out, and Lord Death is still trying to establish himself as the leader of the world and stuff like that. We don't ever get like an explicit time frame, but that's part of why he initially like establishes the the like first order that he creates that like Ashura and Avon and stuff like that are part of, that Ashura ends up betraying when he becomes the new god of fear.
Right.
Is trying to like establish the initial order that becomes the DWMA and Lord Death as being like the ruler of the world and all that.
Yep. So that was the one thing with that. Landing on Sumera here just kind of reminds me of like when I was reading through this. For you guys remember in the anime when they had like that random Japanese woman that was portraying Sumire before the original Great Cataclysm as just like a standard Japanese woman, right? In the source material, it has to be somebody related to the author, because it was the same woman that they used for the actual animation. Not that it was animation, it was just them like filming her like walking down those hallways and being outside and doing like the yoga poses and stuff like that. That was her in that was drawn in the source material. It was like either they found somebody that looked 99% like Sumire that was that the author drew, or it was like him drawing his aunt or something. You know what I mean? That'd be kind of something interesting to look into. But the live action actress that they got for that sequence of live action that was in here, that was her, 100%, same person potentially. So that was definitely, could it be some AI bullshit? Maybe, but I don't want to live there. You know what I mean? I think it was probably somebody, you know, related to the author, like his aunt or sister or something like that, that he just got like to do this, and the fact that she got to do it for the anime, pretty damn cool. You know what I mean? So that was like another thing that I forgot to mention last time. But it was interesting to see each character's choice here. You know, Amaterasu deciding that she just kind of wanted to embrace the void, and not unlike how Mari was the evangelist doppelganger. She was the embodiment of hope, and in the case of Iris, like Amaterasu says, she's everything that she ever wanted to be. So just go live life for both of us. It's better if you do it than me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which I mean, like, yeah, Amaterasu just kind of deciding not to try to start over. Like, once again, she barely got to live before getting shoved into the reactor and then spending the last like 250 years just in constant pain and suffering.
Yep.
She doesn't really have anything to live for at this point.
Right. So, which, you know, it's fair. Both of their reasonings are fair. Like Sumire said, I don't want to be somebody who's had to live through 3 different worlds. This is stupid.
Yeah,
I'm not doing this crap.
Yeah, I've already had to figure out 2 separate worlds. I don't need to be learning a 3rd one now.
Yeah, and you can't blame them. You know, it's like, yeah, she doesn't have to. You know, and on the flip side of those coins, Inko was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot and demand Shinra's babies. That was, I had full disclosure. That was the one thing that got spoiled for me, was that scene. I saw that scene like a month and a half ago, and I was like, yeah, okay. I didn't see the actual scene. It was like, you know, like still frames of the scene. But I was just like, this is gonna be hilarious. And then once again, shot for shot, what it was in the manga, and it was damn hilarious. And we did see by the end there that Inka got her way, because Shinra's kids showed up, and one was definitely from Iris, and the other was definitely from Inka.
Yeah, I didn't know going into it that Inka would be the first witch, but I kind of figured she might be, because she bears a lot of resemblance to what the fuck was her name? One of the freaking main witches of the series that's like very important. I can never remember her freaking name though. But she actually looks a lot like Inka, so I was kind of figuring that she might be a descendant of hers, which witch powers are hereditary. If you have a witch ancestor, then you have at least some level of witch powers yourself. Which we're just kind of hand waving where witch powers even come from. It's just, well, I guess Inka's a witch.
Right. it's just kind of probably just one of those things of like how Tamaki and Juggernaut were talking about, like how, you know, like it's now strong souls, not pyrokinesis. You know what I mean? So like, just because you are a strong pyrotechnic didn't translate for everybody. It translated for Benny Maru and his lieutenant, and then like Obi was like, you know, full on Chris Redfield. I'm gonna punch boulders instead of these flipping mountains or whatever. So it didn't translate for all the like fire soldiers potentially, but you know, people with strong souls in the case of just like kind of probably willing that kind of thing into existence. You know what I mean? Like whatever Rekka manifests with the Star Clan, that kind of thing. Whatever Inca manifested with her, you know, strong soul being a witch, she, you know, was probably just kind of like that desire of like creation that was kind of left over from Shinra to like have people be able to do whatever they want in a way. So if your soul was strong enough and your will was strong enough, you could basically, in a sense, create your own class. It's like, no, I'm a paladin now. You know what I mean? In the case of Arthur and Excalibur, look what they became. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. But that was its own thing. But still, in the case of like Inca, she was just like, I think it'd be fun to be a witch. So it probably manifested for her that way. You know what I mean? So those kind of...
Kim is who I was thinking of. She has a different eye color, but she has like the same hair color and general like physique and mannerism to frickin' Inca.
Right. So yeah, it was cool that, you know, this, we talked about it a little bit at the end of the reaction too, is how well Soul Eater performs as a prequel that wasn't always potentially a prequel to Soul Eater, and it just brings everything together. Fire Force does it for Soul Eater. But how it's just the best prequel that is out there because of how it's handled, and it doesn't suffer from what you could call like prequel syndrome. You know what I mean? It's not removed from the main cast of Soul Eater. You know what I mean? Like how, say, My Hero Academia Vigilantes is. It's removed from the main cast. Yes, it shows some of the main cast, you know, like Midnight, some of the other stuff. We haven't watched it, obviously, but we've seen some stuff. Certain other prequels, you know what I mean? You can look at them, and they're not like stuff that's in a line. You know, it's not like Dragon Ball, how it started at Dragon Ball with Goku being a kid and then slowly progressed all the way to Super. You know what I mean? That was, you know, in that order. You know what I mean? That's how it was released. It's not something that went back to decided to be a prequel after. It'd be like, you know, if Initial D was written after MF Ghost. You know what I mean? But, you know...
That's the thing. Most people, when they look to prequels and be like, oh, that's a successful prequel, in most cases, the prequel wasn't done after the fact. It was done before the fact. It's very rare that you get a proper prequel like this where it's done after the fact and fits in like perfectly.
Yeah. And this was pretty much flawless execution, and you have to applaud the author for what he did with this. And it is a very cool way of doing it. You know what I mean? With Shinra creating everything, and then just how he removed despair for the moment, and then created Lord Death. And then, you know, the whole thing with Lord Death taking the pyrokinetic power, saying this is stuff that, you know, no human should ever have. But I can't do anything about Arthur and Excalibur, apparently, because Excalibur has already become a thing. And he can't do anything for something that's off the planet, technically, because Arthur was floating around like a jackass for months, potentially.
Yeah, eventually he does get Arthur's powers, I know that. But yeah, he can't do anything about Excalibur, because Excalibur's already its own established being at that point. And once again, as we find out, is another god, and it's like rivals him in power.
Yep. So it'll be pretty interesting to see, like, from what I remember, I only watched bits and pieces of Soul Eater, and then Age and I watched it like a year or two, about 2 years ago now. 2 or 3 years ago, relevant on our own time, just to watch it before we started doing Fire Force. And I think now that the author has completed Fire Force at this point and the anime is done, I think they have a really good opportunity to really make Soul Eater like literally perfect. You know what I mean? And it'd be a shame if they didn't do it, especially with like the side series like Soul Eater Not, which it's I know a lot of people are like, well, why is it called Not? NOT stands for something in the universe. It's like it's something of training. something of what, but not NOT.
It's a classification in the school.
Yeah, it's a classification of Meister or something that whatever. So it's not like it's like a double entendre play on words of like, this is not Soul Eater, but it is Soul Eater because it's in the Soul Eater verse that's going on at the same time as like Maka's story, but it's, you know, happening parallel. And it's while it's not Soul Eater, it is Soul Eater, but NOT stands for something specific to that series. I just forget what it means because we watched that too, and it was pretty good. So if they could roll all that stuff into one thing, that'd be really interesting and pretty cool to see if they could, if the author could have them do that and pull that off. Because after the success of Fire Force and how big of a deal it became, I think a lot of people now, having seen this ending potentially, like anime only people, you know, they'll want to see Soul Eater. And for those of you who might want to go off and watch Soul Eater right now, I'm not saying don't watch Soul Eater. I think people should go watch it for what it is. It's very good. It stands up to the, you know, whatever you want to call it, the March of Time. You know what I mean? It's still very good. But it does have stuff that's omitted from the original series, like the source material, and there's a massive amount of it that's cut out at the end, and there's a anime original only ending. So that's why when we talk about Soul Eater Perfect, the author went back and rewrote some stuff and ironed out some flaws and stuff like that, and fixed some stuff that they wanted to.
He mostly went back to redo the art style because his art had gone up significantly over the freaking like decade or so that he was writing Soul Eater. Like the original like start of Soul Eater was pretty rough. But then also he wanted to change and correct things as well, and he did some of that as he was going through and redrawing everything.
Right. So that is just something to keep in mind. So
also, I figured it was this, but I needed to clarify what exactly it meant. Not is normally overcome target.
Yeah.
And it's basically the non-combatant classes in the DWMA, where you're a weapon or a Meister, but you don't really want to be one of the like main Meister teams pushing for like creating a Death Scythe or anything like that. You just kind of want to be mostly a non-combatant.
It's kind of like the business course in MHA, or the support course.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I finally landed on the frame. Even though this kid looks like Arthur, I'm pretty certain that this is still Shinra and Iris's kid. He probably just takes after his Uncle Arthur and decided to adopt his hairstyle, probably because he thinks, you know, Uncle Arthur is super cool.
Yeah, apparently it's never explicitly stated, but this is... as far as everyone's concerned, and come to the conclusion of this is Iris's son and Inka's daughter.
Yeah. So there you have it. Well, that's up in the air if the author ever wants to explain that, but you know. Which,
well, the Inka's child does look kind of masculine. When he gets a further outshot, she does have a bit more of a feminine physique. Plus, also, once again, Inka's a witch, and witches have a genetic disposition towards being female.
Right.
Like, there are some individuals who are male with a witch soul, but the vast majority of the time, if you have any sort of witch genetics, then you're born female.
Right. The wider angle shot is pretty much just that right there, and she does have a more feminine. So I just assumed it was a guy, but it's, yeah. Having looked at it, yeah, it's not. But it's,
I think at some point or another in like one of the Soul Eater things, it's like actually mentioned explicitly that like the exact percentage, and it's something like 95% female ratio for those who have witch genetics. But
right.
There are some males, like Free is a male witch in Soul Eater.
Right. But either way, across the board here, this was a great final episode. To wrap up the series and stuff like that. This was shot for shot how Shinra reacted to the whole double, triple girlfriend thing. I mean, you got to remember, he's like 18. So It's not like he's really dealt with anything like that, so it was definitely kind of a hilarious situation.
Yeah, he's a teenager who was ostracized basically his whole life and focused entirely on just trying to become a hero and not ever really even thinking about other people outside of just trying to save them.
Right.
Iris was like the closest thing he ever got to that, like, oh, it's a girl, I should feel shy.
Right. Yeah, except for the times that Hibana was following him around, but once again, that was literally hero worship, as she pointed out in this episode, where it's just like, yeah, well, he's my idol, so.
She was obsessed with him, but not really romantically.
Yeah. But I still do think it's funny, like, shots like this with, like, freaking Mari holding Sho the way she is, Sho, like, being whatever. It's like, what about you, Sho? You have a dedicated female in your life, too. We're not gonna embarrass Arrow in this episode at all. You guys really missed a shot of comedy right there.
Yeah, it's never stated, but it's implied that Sho ends up getting with Arrow eventually once he's older.
Right, because he's like 12, so it's not like he's that old, and that's kind of why they have that shot with like him and Natsu, with Kurono, you know what I mean, that kind of thing.
Yeah, because going back to school.
They're about the same age, so yeah. But either way, just like all the like random stuff that happens with each of the characters, like Obi's thing, and just all the other like random quirky nonsense that like ties into Soul Leader, very well done, stuff like that. So, it was a solid epilogue. Everything about it was great. I enjoyed it. It was fun to read this right before we watched it, just for the context, so I could talk about like potential differences, like I did with the Rekka stuff and whatnot, and stuff that was slightly different. Which again, we're just on the ball of corporate shenanigans that didn't give them the extra episode that they needed to get everything in, because otherwise they got everything in, and that was impressive that they got the 87 some odd chapters for this last 13 episodes in, that people were afraid that they weren't going to get in. And what was omitted was, while would have been very cool and funny with the Arthur Super Nintendo stuff, if there was something to cut, it's probably the best they could have done. You know what I mean? If they weren't afforded that one extra episode, that would have been enough. It's not like they cut like 5 episodes worth of time. You know what I mean? I'd wager to say they could have gotten all that done in an extra episode worth of runtime. You know what I mean? If they just elongated it out, put everything where it needed to be. So it is what it is. I'm just going to assume corporate shenanigan for whatever reason. So what are you going to do about that? You know what I mean? I gave you guys all the information you needed if you want to go check out the manga wherever it is for on Viz or wherever else it may be. To maybe Crunchyroll has it now, but I don't really want to work Crunchyroll because they're trash. The only reason I still use it is because I'd rather support where I can, and it's like the only option right now. But I think we all know where this is going for certain things, and for certain shows we do have to use random gray sites that still exist, even though a bunch of them have been taken down. There are still some out there that are going full Michael Scott. If you take me down, I'm just going to create another website with a very similar name at a different domain. What I mean, so there are certain websites out there that are much harder to kill and have slightly more anonymity that you're always going to be able to find it. So if we live in the day and age of access to everything, but sometimes access to nothing. I've talked about this being a Dodger fan. I can't watch Dodger games in California. I have zero option. Jeff Ramsey put it best when he wants to he had a pretty good rant about this on one of his streams recently. And if you want to watch like professional baseball, like in or out of market, sometimes you just can't get it. You have to have like an ESPN Plus membership, and then inside of that ESPN Plus Pro Max, whatever they're calling it now, you have to have the MLB subscription that's inside of that, and then they still will regionally black you out even though you're paying for a specific thing. It's fucking ridiculous. You know what I mean? The amount of red tape and nonsense just to watch these games or shows, whatever it may be, has gotten so ridiculously out of control that it's almost circled back around to just cable TV at this point. What cable TV used to be.
You can't even legally watch the English dubs of most anime in Japan anymore because Crunchyroll region blocked Japan to try to silence their backlash.
right? Which is insane. So everything's stupid. People are stupid. You know, that's what it comes down to. A lot of leadership, most of leadership, just across the board, wherever it is, they're stupid. I'm sorry, they don't live in a real world. So that is what it is. But as for Fire Force, I really enjoyed this series. I got to give the crew props that put this together and was able to do almost 90 chapters of stuff in 13 episodes. You know what I mean? We recently did, campfire cooking and, going back and doing that, the first 2 seasons of that, 2 cores, very good show, very good pacing, all of it. That was about 95 chapters and that was 2 cores, and they managed to pull this off in Fire Force in 1, omitting that about 20 minutes that I forced. So well done. That's impressive that they were able to pull it off, and not a whole hell of a lot was omitted. About 7 or 8 chapters worth of stuff, and a lot of it was like fight sequences with Rekka and Hage. You know what I mean? So about it. If they do Soul Eater perfect, we'll be on the channel with it. But as for Fire Force, it was a very good series. Doesn't suffer from prequel syndrome. Characters were memorable. You can say what you want about the fan service, but my god, there's so many other fan servicey only shows out there. I don't know what people are so freaking concerned with. You got freaking cam girls on Twitch and everywhere else in OnlyFans. You're criticizing a cartoon character. You know what I mean? You need to get over it. It's not like this is the only place where you're going to see TNA and personality. You know what I mean? So give me a break. But either way, again, another example of a very good show. It was executed very well, fun watch, and I'll probably watch it again in the future on my own time just to kind of watch it again. It's kind of one of those shows that I wouldn't mind throwing up and just kind of like watching again, happening, to kind of have that feel of just And one thing I will say about this show, I think this show's soundtrack is very underrated. This is a very, very good soundtrack. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the main reason why most people kind of sleep on the soundtrack of this one is just because, similar to the whole MF Ghost versus Initial D thing, it doesn't really live up to the soundtrack of the Soul Eater anime.
Yeah, the Soul Eater soundtrack, very, very, very good. But this soundtrack is very good too. Not Soul Eater level.
Yeah.
I understand that it's like a tier below, but it is still a very good soundtrack, and I enjoy the music and the OPs, the EDs, the stuff they did with some of those were pretty neat for the animation side of stuff. So
yeah. Which once again they did bring back Resonance, the original OP from Soul Eater, in this episode.
Yep, it was there. So everything that needed to be done was there. It was cool to see Lord Death, Excalibur, all that kind of stuff. Hopefully they're able to pull off the Soul Eater perfect for anime, because I think however that is, as long as they're not hamstrung for random nonsensical reasons, has the potential to be like that Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood situation. You know what I mean? Especially if they bring back all the VAs for both, especially Japanese and English. And then they get those soundtracks and potentially do newer age versions of them, maybe remix it a little bit, or just use the majority of the original soundtrack. It's just music, you can just use it wherever, you know what I mean? So it would be it'd be neat to see all that happen, because it's always nice when somebody's creation gets to be put together in exactly what they wanted it to be. You know what I mean? And now that the author has matured and gotten better with drawing and stuff over time and perfected the story to where they wanted it to be, it'd be nice for it to just have that full-on perfect anime adaptation, and it seems fairly clear that he wants it to happen.
Yeah, he's literally gone on freaking social media recently and said that he's looking forward to whatever the next anime project of his friggin' work ends up being. Not really clarifying, not really stating that Soul Eater's next or anything like that, but just stating that like he does want another anime adaptation of something of his at least.
Right. And just I brought this up just so that people don't take this as them confirming Soul Eater Perfect. This is literally the final manga slide. It says this. Like, hey, Soul Eater is what happens next. Like, go read Soul Eater Perfect. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So that's all this means. But once again, we pointed this out a couple weeks ago that the official Soul Eater like anime Twitter just posted a picture of the moon and said next. So to me, that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, people hinting at the possibility, but not outright confirming it as of yet.
Right. They're just kind of like generating hype, which is totally fine. So, but either way, again, this was a great season across the board, both cores. Even though the first core spawned my first channel being removed from YouTube for a while until I won my freaking non-existent court case. So you know, that was what it was. But it's just another thing that I'll remember about Fire Force. It's like, hey, you guys remember when Fire Force got my channel canceled?
Yeah, one thing we didn't really get is I kind of expected that we would get at least some allusion to the rest of the old gods, but essentially all we got was Lord Death, obviously, Excalibur, and it basically confirmed that Shinra was the god of hope before Lord Death took his powers away.
Right.
Because like Haumea even refers to the fact that he is basically a god whenever he's at Bancho.
Yeah.
But we got nothing on the God of Order or the God of the Sea. And then also, you know, the whole thing of like the Despair basically being the original God of Fear that Ashura eventually takes the place of.
Right.
Because, like, once again, Haumea even alludes to that of just like, even if you destroy it now, it'll come back later.
Right. So, either way, it'll be interesting to see what happens next, but hopefully it is Soul Eater Perfect and get on that train and, you know, enjoy a 60, 70 episode series of that, however much that would take, because based on...
Oh, more than that.
It'd be more than that, probably closer to 100, I assume.
Yeah, like, well, I mean, we'll have to see. They, like I said, they managed to condense a lot in this one, so we'll see. But the original anime was 50 episodes, and that only covered like 30% of the story.
Right. So we'll just have to see. But once again,
and then had to be anime original stuff and everything like that.
Yeah, but like you said, they did a really good job condensing stuff, and like I said, what they omitted was what it was, and it's not like they left anything other than stuff that I mentioned. So did a good job with pacing and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll just have to see. But should that ever happen, we'll do it, and I'll definitely look forward to it. Because this is a very cool universe that this author has created, and you know, be proud of it. You know, it is a very good series of works, and if they ever do another series of any kind, I'm sure people will be looking at it. Like at some point, we got to take a look at Demons of the Shadow Realm. It's from the Full Metal Alchemist author, so that should be pretty good. So hopefully, we have time to get that show in, but that's another 2 core. So at some point when we have time, hopefully we can select that in. Yep, Fire Force has been one hell of a ride, and it was fun, quite good across the board. So yeah, that's all I got for this. Great way to wrap up the series, and looking forward to whatever's next for them. Hopefully it is Soul Eater Perfect. Got anything else, Age?
I was just looking real fast, and yeah, as of yet, the author has not done anything since Fire Force ended, which, from what the whole stuff with, like, Kay came out with him saying that, like, she's basically going to be his successor going forward, he's probably done.
Right, yeah. I mean, doing any of these series as much as they've done is a massive endeavor, you know what I mean? not everybody is can pump out multiple series. You know what I mean? The fact that he got 2 very successful series done, that's, you could easily call it a career on 1 successful series, like Attack on Titan or MHA or Bleach. You know what I mean? So those kinds of things. Or you could be Oda and you could have been writing for the last like 40 years. But
yeah, he did manga for about 20 years straight before he finished Fire Force.
A lot of work, man. So gotta give him applause. So well done. We enjoyed it. I even got to invoke his name in my case against the company that went after me. So it was fun. It's like, you don't represent this man. You don't represent Kanakawa. Get out of here. I said it way more eloquently and more legalese, but that's pretty much what I put in my freaking email. Never ever got a response from that company at all, though. So it's pretty interesting. Yeah, that's another story for a different time. But either way.
Okay, yeah, no, he actually has like officially stated that Fire Force is intended to be his final manga.
Got it. Oh, there you have it. So,
not to say he won't, change his mind at some point in the future. He's only 40.
Yeah, he's
but well, 46, but still. But yeah, no, as it stands right now, Fire Force is intended to be his final manga. So unless he changes his mind at some point in the future, he's done.
Right. So bravo on a brilliant career, but again, he's only 46. You could, there are people writing in their 80s these days, so age is fairly irrelevant. I mean, at least I think so. That's how I look at age. I don't, not him age, just like your age. I look at age as being irrelevant. You can do whatever you want, whenever you want, no matter what you're. So,
I mean, freaking Araki started writing JoJo's around the time that Okapo was born.
Yeah.
And he's still going.
Right. So, just depends on the person, the author, that kind of thing. But, yeah, so, bravo, Fire Force. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. And, we'll be hopefully back with Soul Eater at some point in the future. Whatever it may be. Hopefully it happens. But going forward, the rest of this week we'll be finishing MF Ghost, which will also be a double feature this week because that went to 13 for this season, and Jujutsu Kaisen wraps up at 12, so you guys will be getting an extra one. But yeah, as for starting next week, we will be doing a double feature catch up for the spring season since what happened with JoJo's, and we're just gonna deal with the One Piece live action at some point, probably on our own time, and maybe just do a one-off video on it, as we really need to catch up on ReZero and Slime. Those are the 2 biggest things that we were going to do this season, and since what happened with Age with his fire situation and then his internet situation, we lost about 6 weeks of recording time. This should have been done, like about a month ago, so we would have been on track, but yeah, that's the plan. We'll be doing ReZero on Wednesday and Thursday, and Slime on Friday and Mondays until the summer season, which is going to be massive. So, yeah. But it's going to be one hell of a summer season. We got Bleach, we got Skeleton Knight Season 2, we got Tanya coming back. Slime is going to continue because that's a 5-core 4th season with 2 cores starting at the beginning. So, yeah. And then ReZero is going to do its weird 1 2/3 core stuff again. Is what it is. They're doing 19 episodes again, so that's gonna be weird. That's the odd man out a little bit, but we're gonna be playing catch up here at the end of May and going into June, part of July. Should be caught up for starting the summer stuff. So that's the plan. That's what we'll be doing. So knock on wood that nothing else randomly explodes. So, ladies and gentlemen, people of YouTube, beyond heavy watching, as always, we appreciate you stopping by and hanging with us here in the dojo for more anime night. This was Fire Force Season 3, Episode 25. Victoria is going to roll the stills of the season from the entirety of Season 3, not just the last core here, all 25 stills that I've put together. So, as is tradition. And everybody, have a good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever it is for you. Have a good one. See you next time.
everyone, Victoria here. If you enjoyed the video, please consider pushing those like and subscribe buttons. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for your time, and we hope to see you again in the future.